Hey guys, Terrordyne here. Just wanted to go through and do a Darksynth tutorial, kind of explain a deep dive into kind of my process of production and how I go about things, why I do things. Going to be using one of the new songs from my new album and kind of a little overview of what I really do to approach writing. Every project file really is clarity and then organization. For me, organization is paramount to absolutely everything. As you can see, is kind of a full overview of the song itself. Everything is clearly labeled, color coded, laid out in sections. You know, as you can see, drums, got bass here, and then this is all synth, pluck, pads, everything, whatnot. Choir, and then everything down here, which I get kind of lazy with labeling, kind of all the effects, the one shots, the sweeps, ups, downs, any vocal samples. My music's heavily influenced by 80s and 90s horror music. Well, not the music, horror movie themes and whatnot, but typically the music and stuff that was done in the 80s, very heavy synth, kind of menacing vibes to it. As you can see with the organization, everything labeled, I have everything labeled over here based on what it is, and that also correlates with the mixer down here. Everything's clearly labeled, color coded. Sometimes it might be a little OCD, I suppose, but anybody that's kind of seen my process, especially anybody that I've worked with, can tell you I don't do this just for this project file or tutorial to make myself look good. This is what I do pretty much every single project. So let's get into it. Some of the samples I used, I guess we'll start with drums first. Up here I've got shakers. I think I got these off of Splice, just some kind of generic shakers. Project files 110 BPM. I believe this is a C minor key. I can't remember. So let's get into it. Shakers here. This is what they sound like. It's kind of just like a top layer over what I normally would do with the hats as well. Crash. For me, I kind of like a short, snappy crash. You know, we can see that I've shortened it up a little bit to have a little bit of shorter tail. This is what it would sound like normal. You know, me personally, what I like, it's a little bit too long. Not really into that. For me, I think it kind of cuts into the clarity just a tiny little bit. The drums that I use go in here. Kick. Nice little, you know, punchy, clubby kick. Closed hat. And then I'd like to layer quite a bit. Mainly, usually it's one kick, one hat, and then two snares. And as far as other layers, I'll go into that with the synths and the pads and whatnot. But these are what the snare sounds like. I prefer real short, kind of snappy snare. Not really into that stereotypical 80s huge, wide gated snare. It's just not what I'm into. This is an outrun snare. See what I did there. All right, let's go back into it. Okay, we got kind of an outrun snare, typical. It's got normally a really long tail, a lot of reverb kind of naturally added into the sample itself, which you can see I've shortened up the tail quite a bit. So this is what it sounds without that tail. My thing is I kind of just want that initial short snappiness in the beginning, and I don't really want that tail. That's what it sounds like with the tail. It's a little too wide for my personal opinion. Both of these snares, they're from the drum sample pack, Arcade Summer. I think the Bacharach snare is from Power Snares, and then the Outrun snare is from the drum sample pack 1. Crash, also from that same pack. So I think we shortened that, yeah. And then we got toms, also from that sample pack. Nice little high tom. I've added a little bit of reverb and some compression to it. And then the Krimh drums is kind of contact player. This is a free version of it. I kind of alternate between this and Easy Drummer. It kind of depends on what I'm doing with the song. But I think this is free. It's Bogan Audio or Bogan Digital, if I'm not mistaken, probably butchering the name. Anyway, so let's get in with the bass. I'm going to go through and kind of show the presets and whatnot that I used. Yes, I use presets. Sometimes I leave them as is. Sometimes I will change them a little bit. Sometimes change them dramatically. My personal opinion, there's really no right or wrong way to go about that. There are certain artists that'll say if you're using presets, you're just doing copy wave. I'm not going to name artists specifically by name. I personally do not want to handcraft every single preset from scratch. You know, I already spend way too much time per project file just trying to go through all of this, figure it out, write it. So yeah, somebody already spent all the time to do it. So who am I to say I'm not going to do it? You know, I can probably craft each preset by hand, but I absolutely have no desire doing that since I talked about time. Let's see, I can show you how much time I've actually gone on to this. So info, yeah, about 21 and a half hours spent working for it. So let's get into it. Here, I guess we'll start with the intro. You know, you see it's kind of an intro, verse, I guess, pre-chorus, chorus, and then we've got the break, you know, from here to here, and then it kind of goes back into it and with changes. You can see with the intro, it's real kind of just basic. This is, I think this was Serum 2. So let's just listen to it. You know, just kind of a real nice drone, atmospheric pad, whatnot. And then I've got a couple of little samples, sweeps. I think this is a voice sample from Nightmare on Elm Street.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming.
You know, something nice and easy, just kind of for the intro. This, I kind of just go straight into the song. Drums, layered bass here, and then kind of the main melody. The layered bass, I think it's both Serum, this one here. Serum, I used Serum 1 at the time when I started this. I think Serum 2 wasn't quite out yet, and then it came out somewhere in the middle. This is a preset from The Encounter, aka Hot MILF Dad. I don't think he's released this yet, but that's kind of what I used. And then this one is an analog 80s bass from Serum 2. So I guess we can listen to these kind of separated individually. So you know, it kind of encompasses the high end of the spectrum for the bass, and then the low end as well. This the analog one is a little bit more on the high end. The hippie Serum bass is on the low end. I like to kind of put these breaks like this just because, you know, I don't want the same thing playing repeatedly. I want a little bit of break for the drums, hats, everything to kind of shine through so it's not just a big wall of noise. For me, I guess my outlook on Darksynth is not everything has to be this giant wall of distorted noise. So I kind of like to separate that. A little bit of distortion, but a little bit more clean is my ideal type of thing. For the main melody, it's also Serum 1. It's like a trance saw. We'll play that, and you can see kind of how I did it. You know, so we're starting the same notes at the bottom with each, you know, each note goes ascending, and then we kind of go descending and then ascending again. So let's play that, and then I've added in some sweeps, samples, and whatnot, just to kind of keep a little bit more full doing it. So we'll start here, go into the intro, and then the verse.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
I'm sure you can tell here, I've got everything kind of organized and laid out how they kind of come into the song. If you see, it's kind of pretty much throughout the whole project. It's typically about every 8 to 16 bars something is either being added, adjusted, kind of keep it a little bit fresh, and so it's not so repetitive. This is like a really high-pitched violin from Flex. This is standard with FL Studio. Let's listen to that, and it's got a little bit of a side chain on it. It really just kind of fills it out and adds a little bit extra element to it. So let's play that when that comes in. And then for the drums, it's basically just kind of a 4-on-the-4 kick pattern, kick snare pattern. And then here we add in more hats and whatnot. So we'll play just that. And going in here, adding the violin. See, it kind of adds that extra element, and then you have both of the basses kind of layered together. I put them both in the same little pattern here just because I don't want to have a whole bunch of stuff on the screen, so I can easily go in this. It's labeled, you know, I know it's a layered bass, so it's going to be at least 2 if not more basses. As far as transitions, you can see there's quite a few transitions, but it's just really short, essentially bringing in the next part of the song. Here I've got, you know, it's the kick and snare, and then with the toms transition here. You know, so how I kind of go about approaching tom fills and whatnot. You know, I've got 3 regular notes, and then here I think I halved it. Just to kind of give it a little bit of extra fill. I think the pan, sometimes I'll do a pan where it's from left to right or right to left. So let's see how that kind of sounds. Just adds a little bit more dynamics to the track. Here, this is a real high pluck. I believe this is also from Serum. And it's the exact same pattern as the main melody, but it's a lot higher, a couple octaves up from the main melody, just to kind of add a little bit more depth. You know, so playing those two together, it really makes a big difference, coming from the main melody with violins, and then we add in another pluck layered on top of that, playing the same melody. And then this is also kind of a pad string from Serum 2, called 70s string, I believe. You know, it's just real basic progression. There's not a whole lot to it. Nothing I really do is, I guess, expert level. I suppose it's just about putting kind of all the elements together to make sure they work, they fit with each other, and it kind of fills out the little sound spectrum a little bit more. So we've got, you know, the heavy bass here, and then we've got kind of a lower saw wave here, and then with the pluck, it's a lot higher to fill that out. So we'll do the transition and then going in here. You know, it just kind of adds a little bit more dynamic to it. And then also we have the 4-on-the-floor with the hats and a tom fill to kind of bring in the next little part, which here is a choir. We'll go in, I guess we'll go and do the choir. It's a choir from Directwave. Can't remember where I got it. I think I got this when I did a collaboration with Kick Puncher, and he had added this to the project file. As you can see here, one is a choir A, the other one's choir O. A is panned hard left, and then the O is hard right, which it really, like I said before, it fills in that dynamic, makes it kind of real big sounding. You know, to me, I like when I do choirs, I like having one pan left and right. It fills it out. I guess we can do it in each one individually. Let's do all the way just in stereo instead of pan mono hard left. Then we'll do with the O, stereo, and the hard pan left. to me, it's how I approach it. I kind of like doing that. We'll add it, play it with all the choir how it is. So here's kind of the next part where we bring in more of a pre-chorus, I suppose. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know, I'm not classically trained musician. I kind of just taught myself through trial and error and years of just continuing to do this. Here's the same layered bass from Serum with the analog and then that real low bass. And then the heavy bass that I've labeled here, it's both from Serum, one fat res and then one combi. It's kind of just real heavy, distorted, but it's a little bit longer tail on each of them. So we'll put this out here. That's the fat res. You can see it's real heavy but long. And then same combi, it's playing the same pattern. You know, so let's go in here. Multi-saw, this is from Silent 1. I still use this quite a bit to some extent in each project. It's really kind of outdated at this point, but it's just a standard preset ARP multi-saw. I keep it arpeggiated, but for me, I have little 16th notes, so it's not really, where is it? There we go. So it's not really having the full ARP sequence, and it really plays just the highs instead of the low part of it. So we'll play that. So that's what it sounds like. But if we turn off the arpeggiate, I think it's a couple octaves lower, which just didn't sound good, and it just kind of reduced the clarity. There's a lot of bass going on, so I didn't want to do that. You know, for me personally, it just sounded better at the higher end of the spectrum. Right? So we've got the same leads basically, and the violin and the string machine and the choir playing the exact same melody. These are more of kind of a chord aspect of it, and then with the multi-saw adds another layer of dynamics. Here we have another bass from Serum 2 called Talk Bass, and it's really just kind of a accent on top of all of the notes that are already playing. Short, snappy, really just kind of makes all the little difference, kind of the little things that really go with it. And then also I have shakers layered on top of the whole drum thing here. So like I said, pretty much every 8 to 16 bars, something is either added, being changed, you know, being brought in just to really fill the whole thing out. This is Crystal Bells, I believe it is also from Serum, Silent 1. And I think this is also a normal preset. Yeah, just a regular preset that comes with it. I think I shortened it up a little bit as far as the sustain, the release. So it's real kind of high bells that'll just add a little bit more dynamics. Super clean bells. Can never go wrong with a real good bell. And then we have the violin and then the 70s playing the exact same pattern. You know, as far as the transition to bring in another layer, instead of just doing the normal either tom fill, snare fill, kick fill, and then with a sweep up, I've added in a sample from, I believe it was Doom. Kind of shortened it up a little bit and tailored it to what I want it to sound like. This is what it sounds like. You know, just something a little bit different instead of having the regular fill to bring in the next little element. Thing I think important with transitions is they're not really the main focus of the song, but it's super, super important because it just transitions one part of the song into the next where you're adding something, taking something away. You know, so you can see it's pretty much all the same with some minor changes here and there. but you want to keep it the same feel, so it's like everybody knows it's the same song. You know, it doesn't seem repetitive, but it still has the same feel. You know, psytrance, I absolutely love psytrance, kind of my little guilty pleasure, and I think it's usually every 8 or 16 bars with psytrance, absolutely everything is changing. All the melodies are changing. The only thing that really stays the same typically would be the drums and the bass line. That's usually like a straight 16th note rolling bass line. Works really well for psytrance. For me personally, I don't really like it if you put it into the mix of Darksynth. I think it takes away from just the whole element of what the song is and how the song kind of flows. So we'll do with the transition and then kind of leading into that chorus. You know, I've kept the layered bass from Serum and then added in that fat res bass playing a little bit different pattern. And then here the pattern follows with the trance lead and the solo lead, and I'll get to that in a second, with the crystal bells, and then Discopolis, which is also Silent 1. They're all playing the same, and it kind of goes with solo follows the bass, and then you've got the trance following kind of just a little bit different melody, and then the Rosette Wig, that real high pluck, playing a little different melody for the real high end with the pluck, and then the bells, and then this is kind of a different bell. So solo, it's real high, kind of got a little portamento slide to it. And then Discopolis, kind of the same thing. Nice saw lead with portamento slide. See, it's playing the same melody as the solo lead, and then here that 70 strings playing the exact same melody. The bells here, this is also from Serum. I know it says Serum 2, but I think that was initial preset from Serum 1. Yeah, I just got lazy, didn't go back and add, have everything separated from Serum 1 and Serum 2. So let's play that. Super nice bell with kind of played high end on the spectrum with some delay added. I'm not really going to go into mixing. It's not something I'm really interested in doing. I guess I could do a whole nother video just on mixing. I could talk all day about mixing drums, snares specifically. It's kind of my thing. So let's play all of that little pre-chorus part fully. So that tom fill, again, just brings in the transition, letting people know that something different is being added. And it's also got a sweep up here. Like I said, these here, most of these are sweeps, up or down, or just little tiny things to add for element. The transitions, really how I kind of work with it is lower in the volume, just because they're not really important as far as it needing to be loud and forefront in the mix, but it's super important for it to transition the song, so it just doesn't feel super repetitive. Here's kind of a break. Usually I'll do some kind of pads. This is choir with the high bells crash here just to kind of finish out that transition. Creates a break in the song, lets it kind of breathe a little bit. And then this is a sample from, I can't remember what movie that's from. I think it was Nightbreed. I have it kind of together in the same channel as that sample from Doom, just because it's not really that dramatic, and I'll just bust them together. Most of the stuff, some people like to bust all of their drums and their synths together. I'm not really into that because it really limits the amount of control I can do when it comes to the mixing part of it. if I've got them on all channel or everything on the same channel, I can't really alter or adjust. The volume is the volume, kick, snare, they all sit kind of different parts of the spectrum as far as drums. So that's just how I approach it. There's other people, professional, that they like to bust them together, but for me, it's kind of how I do it personally. I do everything myself, so I do all the mixing and mastering, and it just makes it a little bit easier. As far as the mixing and mastering, I always write everything in one file project and then export it and then mix and master in a separate file project. I don't really mix anything as I go, as far as like the bass, the synths, choir here. I mix everything after I've written it. My personal opinion is if it sounds good while I'm writing it, without any mixing, mastering, all of that, it's just going to make my life a little bit easier when it comes time to do the mixing in a separate file project. So let's play the little break here.
Human. Natural. That means you're meat for the beast.
This part is kind of the next chorus part. We go back. The drums are basically the same. We've got a couple of transition toms here, and then over here another one. Bass patterns changed a little bit, and then the main melody. It's pretty much the main melody, except the bottom notes go down. Just so it's not super repetitive. It's not the exact same melody from the very beginning, but it is subtle changes that make the difference. So let's play that. So we've got that, and then solo again is playing a different pattern. I think the pattern it basically follows the layered bass pattern, and then we've got the string machine again, and then also those high bells playing the same pattern. Like it said, a little bit the lower notes go down. Here, transonic, this also follows the same bass pattern. I have it kind of just a real basic chord. I think this is Korg M1, and it's just one of the standard ones that come with it. So it just adds an extra dynamic to it. It's basically all playing the same pattern, but it's the synths and the pads kind of doing different things. And then the choir also follows that same pattern. So here is kind of the next chorus where it really changes. A lot of the patterns change. Solo is playing the exact same pattern as the bass pattern, and then the 70 string machine and choir is also playing that next pattern. Here I layered up the crystal bells, the Rosentwig, that real high pluck, and then the trance lead, all playing the exact same pattern. So you can see it kind of changes dramatically from the main melody and then a totally different melody, but it still feels the same. I think how I typically do is if I have a basic melody, kind of like this one, I take that melody and then I really kind of add on top of it, make some changes so it stays familiar, but it's totally different. And then here we brought back the multi-saw, and then this is also a different pattern with the trance lead, solo, and then that transonic from Korg M1, and then the string machine and the bells are playing that exact same melody. So it's all kind of layered together. We'll talk about drums. So this is that Krimh drums. It's more of a metal drum VST. It's got its own little grooves that you can add in. I think I added in the basic groove and then changed it slightly just to fit with the song a little bit better. You can do the exact same thing with Easy Drummer. Like I said, this one was free. Easy Drummer I own. So it really just depends on how I'm feeling about the song and kind of what the drums sound like and how they really affect the song. So we'll play we'll play this little transition part. So it's really just something added on top. We have the shakers, we have that, we have the hi-hats. Might be a little bit too much. Obviously, if it's playing live and it's like a live drummer, they're not going to be playing the cymbal parts, the kick, the snare, the hats all at the same time. It's just not going to do it. But it's little things like this that I like doing. It just sounds better to me personally. That fills out that dynamic. So it's not just the standard kick, snare, and hat pattern. And then we also have the same tom fill here. It might be slightly different. Nope. Pretty sure it's just the same. Yeah, it's the exact same transition. Going here, we have the heavy bass, which is that those two real heavy kind of long-tailed basses from Serum. Ideally for layering, what I like to do, I suppose I could just do some real big chords and just layer a huge chord progression. I don't really like doing that. It kind of can cut into clarity, and each of the layers that I put in, they really fill out the spectrum, whether it's kind of highs, mids, or lows. Probably a little bit more CPU intensive, especially when you've got a bunch of instances of Serum. It can kind of bog my computer down personally. So we'll play this kind of little break section here, and you can see with the subtle changes and then all of this, the melody change with more of like a lead kind of solo type of deal.
There's something out there.
So you can see it's a little break, it's a transition. I'm not doing a whole lot to fill that transition in. It's pretty apparent and obvious that there's probably something coming next after that. Just has the sweep, and then this here is just the same sample, a little bit different part from the Nightmare on Elm Street that you heard from the beginning. So we'll play that if I can get to it. Come on. There.
There's something out there, isn't there?
You know, it's the same thing. I think it was just from the trailer from the 80s, you know, the initial Nightmare on Elm Street trailer. Just kind of a little sample that I like throwing in. It just adds a little bit more dynamics to the song in general. Here, the drums change a bit. It's with the Krimh, however you say it, metal drums, and then I have the kick and the snare. These drums, they've got all of their own, you know, kick, snare, hat, cymbals, everything. But I prefer to just kind of go in and, yeah, see, you know, it's killing my CPU going through all of those. I prefer to use my own kick and then my own snares for it. I don't really like the snare that comes with these drums, but I really like the crash in the cymbals. So we'll solo this little pattern. Here I've half-timed the kick and the snare to kind of create a little different groove. I think my personal feeling that I like hearing is when you're going for this regular 4 on the floor pattern and then you half-time the drums, it really creates another dynamic that I really like. I come from making music in the metal and the hardcore scene, so kind of going from the faster to the slower really adds a different dynamic to it. So we'll solo that and play that all together. It's real basic. It's not super difficult. You know, there are other artists that really change time signatures. Like a synthwave artist, change time signatures, have a lot more complicated drum parts that they write. Like Mitch Murder is a prime example. He used a lot of breakbeat, regular 4 on the floor, drum and bass patterns, and I think he typically works at a higher BPM, maybe 160, 170, 180, and kind of feels a little bit slower. It doesn't feel so fast, just based on the drum patterns that he writes. Bass, it's just a basic 16th note rolling bass, but the way I have it with the sidechain compression is sidechain only is applied when the kick hits, right? So it gives it that pumping feeling. I don't really want to go into how to do the sidechain. There's a million tutorials on YouTube that can show you how to do the sidechain, but I think it just, for me, how I wrote this album, I have a lot of kind of the metal drum breakdowns, and I go from the standard 4 on the floor, 110 BPM to half timing the drums, and it just creates a little bit, dissonance with it. As far as the dissonance with the minor keys, you can do something that sounds nice and evil and menacing with a major key, but it just sounds so much better with a minor key. Because with the major keys, you don't really get that half step up or down that you can with a minor key. So I mean, we'll go into trance here, and then that half step up, or you can do half step down. For me, it sounds a little bit more menacing. Like I said, with the major keys, I think it was John Carpenter's Halloween theme. I think he said it was a B major key. It's a real basic pattern, but it's just super effective. So we'll play this with the metal breakdown kind of transition going into that halftime drums.
There's something out there.
And then from there, it's just the 8-bar thing, and then adding it in. After that 8-bar, adding it back into, with the metal cymbals, the shakers, and then it's the same 4 on the floor drums again. And then we have the multi-saw and all of this melody with the Rosette Wig, the high pluck, the trance saw, and the crystal bells and Discopolis all playing the same melody. It's basically the same as, where is it? Going back in here. I basically just copy and paste, changed it slightly. Might have not even changed it slightly. And then little transition going into the next part that really kind of ends the song. So that's pretty much the bulk of the song, and then we have just a little outro. It's the same melody with the high bells, the high pluck, and that string pad. Kind of extend the high pluck out because it's got a lot of reverb and a little bit of a delay on it, just so it doesn't cut off, because that would just sound terrible. So I'm going to go ahead and play the whole song. Hopefully you guys learned everything, learned something at least, kind of see a little inside look in my production, how I go about it, what I do. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them down there or reach out to me personally. If you like this kind of content from me, let me know. I think I might do a little bit of a series on going through some of my project files and how and why I do what I do. Thanks again for listening, and let's play the full song.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
That means your meat for the beast.
There's something out there.
Thanks for watching. Peace.